Hi, and welcome to Instagram Basics. As many of you already know, I'm Mary Ellen, but for those of you that are just joining, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I'm excited to start digging into some of the basic information about Instagram so that you feel more empowered and more ready to take on that platform for your business. We're going to cover a few different topics here today. We're going to discuss types of posts. So, posts on the feed, stories, and story highlights. We're also going to talk about types of content. So once we know about those types of posts, what are we actually going to post for them? And then we're also going to talk about what should be in a post and what should be in a story because they have very different prescriptions. It's important to note that this video also doesn't cover how to post things. If you need a more step-by-step tutorial, I recommend giving us a shout. We have plenty of resource articles that we can send you. There are a few things you're going to want to have in front of you today while we go through this session. One of those things is your phone. Unfortunately, we usually say don't have your phone in front of you while you're learning, but when you're learning on Instagram, it's a necessity. Unlike many other social media platforms, Instagram is primarily managed on your phone. So it's important to have it ready and available as we go through this so that you can take a look at things on your profile. In addition to that, you may want to have some paper and a pencil to take notes, and you may also want to have the slides printed out for you at your convenience. Throughout this video, I'm going to be also showing my screen on my phone, so you'll be able to follow along and see exactly what we're talking about in real time. Today, we're going to talk about three different types of content. We're going to talk about stories, we're going to talk about story highlights, and we're going to talk about posts on the grid. Our profile is going to be used as an example to show you the different types of content and how they can be used. So, as you can see, the first thing that we're going to talk about is posts on the grid or posts on the feed, because that's what most people are familiar with when they first endeavor into Instagram. And that is what we're talking about here. So here we have a variety of different posts that have been posted over time. Posts on the feed are an important part of your Instagram strategy because when somebody comes to your profile, they're going to see the posts on your feed and this can entice them to follow you. So if they immediately see on our feed, okay, they do funding tips, they are probably local based on the Cove Kombucha post, perhaps they are into education based on the book, whoever it may be, whatever they may assume, we want these posts to be attractive so that they end up clicking the follow button. Right now you can't see the follow button because we're in viewing as ourselves, the profile, but on any other profile, you would be able to see a blue follow button here instead of edit profile. And that's what we want people to ultimately do to grow your network. So if we look back at the posts, you'll notice also that there's kind of a theme moving through them. So there's a color theme. If we look at the Cove Kombucha post, the tourism business post, the computer screen post, the social proof post, and the on the blog post, those are all more graphic style content. However, if you look at the photo posts, they're surrounding them in a nice pattern, and that's called grid planning. And grid planning is an important part of your Instagram strategy because it makes your feed look cohesive, it makes your feed visually interesting, and I like to say it is a form of art in itself in how we get our feeds to display our images because it's about having a creative eye as well. That being said, it's also about having an organizational eye. So we don't want it to be a whole, mix of different types of content. We want there to be some cohesion there. So whether that be an alternation of graphics, or if you don't like graphics, you can also work with the coloring of your photos. So we may have a line of green style photos like we have with the tree and Jillian sitting in her chair. We may have a line of lighter photos. We may have a line of photos that feature pinks or feature blues. And we can also work in things other than lines when we get more advanced. So we could have diagonal themes. So we've talked about how posts are important on your main page, but it's also important to mention that this is not necessarily where people will be seeing the posts for the first time. This is only where they'll see them if they actually click to interact with your profile. On any given day, they may be searching through their home screen, and this is where you can see a variety of posts from the accounts that you're following. And this is where your post will show up too for your followers. So even though grid planning is very important, as we've talked about, the most important thing is that you start getting posting. Moving upwards, we also have stories. So stories live in your profile picture. So when you see that ring around your stories, that pinkish, orangish ring, that indicates that this person has posted a story. So we can go ahead and tap the profile picture and we can see that there's been a post onto the story. Stories, again, are a great way to share content. They're a great way to engage with your current following. This story features a post. So if we go back to a post on our grid and we press this little paper airplane, we can see add post to your story. This allows us to take a post that may have only reached 10 of our followers, put it in our story, and we can watch as it reaches more people. Stories are also a great place to host conversations. So if you're comfortable getting up and going in front of your phone and having a conversation with your followers, this is the perfect place to put it. It's also a wonderful tool for posting pertinent information to the day. So if you have an unexpected closure due to a snowstorm, or your shop's opening hours, you just want to remind people that you're open 8 till 5. It's a great place to put that rather than your feed because it disappears after 24 hours. So when we look at our grid, we're looking at posts that are going to stay for a long time. Their life cycle is not long, so people don't typically actually go in and read them and see them after a few hours since they've been posted, but they still live on our feed. So if we're posting a graphic every weekend about our store hours on our feed, it's not really the right medium to be putting it on because it's not relevant to anybody that's coming to the profile anymore. What we want to do is include those in our stories. It's the perfect place for that. When we go to our main Instagram page, we can also see what other people are posting in their stories. By clicking up here, we can simply see what everybody has started posting. There's also occasionally ads, and if you decide you like to have ads for your business in this space too. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about is story highlights. So you'll see along here, real life, biz tips, reviews, showcase, news. These are highlights from previous stories that have been posted. So remember how I said stories last 24 hours? Well, this is kind of the way to make them last longer than that. So I know this sounds kind of contradictory where we just said stories are meant to last 24 hours, but sometimes there's also a benefit to saving them. So let's say you get onto your stories and you start talking and answering some followers' questions about the unique nature of your product. Well, even though that's still a great place to have that conversation, other followers in the future might still be interested in hearing that information. So what we can do is we can save it to a highlight. So you'll see this little heart that says highlight, and then we can select which highlight we want to put it under. To view what's inside a highlight, we just go to the profile and we select the highlight. So as you can see, there's content that's saved. This one is from 31 weeks ago, a reminder that we posted something new on the grid. 30 weeks, 30 weeks. So these are stories that were posted and they're older, but at the same time, they're still relevant today for anybody that might be interested in learning more about who we are, let's say. Let's say you've just launched a new product and you want to feature it in your stories because you want all of your followers to see it. Well, when you're done featuring it in your stories, save it into your highlights because I guarantee you it will continue to grow in its views as people come to visit your profile. Perhaps they'll see your Valentine's Day collection that was highlighted from being posted on February 1st, and they'll come to see it on February 5th. It's also important to remember that having pretty highlight covers like this is something that's very easy for you to create for yourself using the tool Canva. And that's just Canva without the S, so Canvas without the S.com. And it's got plenty and plenty of templates for you to use to create story highlights like this. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to check out the description next to this video or to contact us. Before we continue, I'd also like to mention two more bonus little tidbits. The first thing is about your profile description. So you can see here we have a bit of an overview of the business, our tagline, some catchy text about what they can do, such as book a free consult or a website analysis, and also our location. And even more importantly, right below that, our one link. So Instagram doesn't allow you to link within posts. This is really important. Any link that you put in posts or comments will not hyperlink to that location, such as your website. What we need to do in Instagram is say, check out the link in our bio for more information. And this right here, forwardcreative.ca/Shopify or WooCommerce, is a recent blog post that was featured in one of our posts. If you're a business that ends up having a lot of links, so let's say you're a shop for one, a way to get around this and being able to link to your products is by clicking that Add Shop button. This will allow you to sync your e-store with your Instagram so you can tag products right in your photos. This is a better workaround than including links in your bio. If you don't have an e-store, but you still have to post a lot of links, so let's say you have a lot of blog posts or you post a lot of resources on your website and you want to continuously be updating those links. Another option is to create what's called a link tree. I won't go too in detail here because it's kind of a next step beyond basics, but what we can do is on your website, you can create a list of buttons that can be featured in your Instagram bio. Your website developer will have knowledge of this, most likely. They should. I'd also like to quickly mention that there are more types of content that can be posted on Instagram. There are Reels, which are growing in popularity extremely quickly. That's what you can see in the little clapperboard towards the bottom. We're not going to go in depth in this session on Reels because it can be quite an undertaking, and this is just a basic overview. But I do want to mention that there are additional types of content that you can create here. So we've talked about what types of posts we can post on Instagram, but the biggest question is, what do I post? The best way to approach, or at least I find the best way to approach your types of posting or what type of content you're going to post is to look at it in 4 pillars. We have educational content, inspirational content, informative content, and entertaining content. If we look at each post in this way, it can help us formulate what we're really trying to achieve with a post, and that can better improve our descriptions, better improve our graphics or photography, and take our profile to the next level. I'd also like to take a minute to mention that a lot of this planning is underway, but it should also become second nature. So we don't need a profile that's perfect or rigid or, so meticulous that it's causing you stress. What we need is just some foundational basics so that you're aware of what you're doing and then you can take it in any creative direction that you want to. So let's talk a little bit about each of these types of content. Starting off with educational content, because it's probably the most obvious. No matter what your business is, most likely you can create educational content. Whether you're an artisan or a shop owner, you have a following that's interested to learn from you. If you create stickers, you could educate your customers on the best types of stickers for their different uses. If you sell food, you could educate your customers on nutrition or on health conscious living. No matter which direction you choose, there should be an angle that you can create educational content from. And educational content performs very well on social media, not just Instagram alone. So feel free to have content blend from your Facebook and your Instagram. The next type of content that we'll talk about is inspirational content. Inspirational content is taking that organic food, making it into a recipe, and inspiring our followers with a beautiful photo of it displayed on a table. It's inspiring them to get cooking at home, which is probably something that your following base really likes to do if they're into organic grocery markets. The next type of content that we're going to talk about is informative content. Informative content tells your followers when your store is open, when you have new products, and important things that they need to know or information about your business. And lastly, entertaining content. Entertaining content is when you get your staff at the organic market to do a little dance. And it doesn't always have to be dancing, which a lot of people get afraid of. There are a lot of ways that we can entertain our following that's not just dancing. It's important to mention that Instagram is a visual platform. So, no matter which content type you're making, it's important to really think about your photo or your graphic and ensure that it's visually pleasing and it's going to be something that the consumer would really like to look at. I'll also mention here that there's a big difference between Instagram feed posts and Instagram stories. Instagram feed posts, as you remember from earlier, are about enticing people to follow you and looking pretty and planned on your feed. It's good to curate your content. Instagram stories, however, can be a lot more candid. If you're sick in bed and you can't make it to work and you post that on your Instagram with a picture of your snoozing alarm clock, that's a much more candid approach to business. And it's not something we typically see on other platforms, but it is okay on Instagram. I'll say that with a little disclaimer, depending on your type of business. If you're a law firm, you might not want to be doing this. And that brings us into our next segment of what should be a post and what should be a story. We kind of just touched on that a little bit. It's important to remember that stories last 24 hours, as we've said. Aside from highlights, it's important that they're pertinent to the moment. Also, it's important to remember that stories are designed for engagement. It's very easy for your followers to type a reply, and you may get many inbox replies on your stories because that's what people are accustomed to doing on Instagram. Don't be afraid to ask a question, to share advice, or ask people what they're thinking about in relation to what you're sharing, because it's a collaborative social media. It's also important to mention that many people watch their Instagram stories with their sound on. So if you have something going on in the background, there's a very simple option to turn your sound off your story on Instagram. Stories, even though I say they disappear in 24 hours and they should be more relevant to the business at the moment, there's nothing that's really off base for your stories. If you post something new, share it to your story. If you have something important going on for the next 3 weeks, share it to your story. Stories are kind of an open ground for sharing things in general. We also want to talk about what should be a post. So Instagram posts last on your feed forever, unless you delete them, of course. But that means that the content is evergreen. So we want content that continuously serves your business, even if it's to look at a blast from the past of 5 years ago when you were just starting out and to where you are now. It still serves a purpose even 5 years later. And this reverts back to this comment about stories. If it's about your business being closed due to a snowstorm, that's a great example of something that's not evergreen and not going to be relevant in the future. Your Instagram posts are also more curated, as we've discussed. They follow often a grid pattern or a typical color flow. Your posts are also designed for reach. They're going to be seen by people that are not just your followers, unlike your stories. They're going to be seen in the Discover panel or in feeds of things that you've hashtagged as well. And I know we haven't touched on hashtags yet, but that's for another segment. So overall, what we can see here is stories are quick conversational posts that disappear within 24 hours unless they're really important and you want to save them to your feed. Posts are more curated, evergreen content that we want to see lasting for quite a long time.